Hey everyone, and welcome to Co Blueprint. I'm Jeanette Mulvey, the Content Director of Co by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Today we're talking about ways businesses can use technology to build their customer relationships. We'll talk about how to make the most of the tools and technology you can use to engage your customers and how you can start doing that today, no matter where you are in your business journey. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us today. We know this is a really challenging year for small businesses, and we created this series to help you get through this tough time, rebuild your business safely, and come out on the other side stronger and better than ever. Before I introduce you to today's panel, I want to go through a few housekeeping notes. First of all, we will be asking a few questions of you throughout the program, some polls. So keep your eye on the live polls on the right side of your screen. And you can already answer our first poll question, which is, in one or two words, what's the most important trait of good customer relationship management? So you can go ahead and put your answers there now, and we will reveal the results a little bit later. Second, we will be taking your questions for our panelists later in the session. So you can start typing those on the right-hand side of your screen at any point, and I will be asking them later. And if you see someone else's question and you like it, hit the thumbs up button. That'll move it higher on the list and will help us know which are the most popular questions. Now, before I introduce the panelists, I just want to thank our presenting sponsor, Chase for Business, as well as our supporting sponsors, AppGuard, FedEx, MetLife, Salesforce, and Square. So I would first like to introduce our expert today. His name is Tony Kays, and he is Area Vice President of Small Business Sales for Salesforce. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, Jeanette, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Hi, Tony. Yeah, thanks for joining me. So before we get started, just tell us what your job is at Salesforce so we can understand a little bit about your area of expertise and why you're a great person for us to be interviewing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been at Salesforce for about 12 years now, and half of my career I've spent in the SMB space. I was an SMB owner prior to Salesforce, and then I currently now run our SMB business. SMB is defined by companies of 200 employees or less. So whether you're a one-person shop or a couple hundred employees, you likely roll somewhere into my organization if you're a customer of Salesforce.
What kind of small business did you run, just out of curiosity?
It was a sports performance training company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before I start asking you our real questions, we didn't really get to the questions yet. These are the pre-question questions.
Yeah.
Just so that everybody who's listening is on the same level playing field to start with, can you just explain for people as simply as possible, what is CRM and what does it do?
Yeah. Well, it stands for Customer Relationship Management. And honestly, in its most simple form, it's just a technology system to help you improve your business relationships.
And it does that by?
It does that by having data available so you can see it, so you can act on it, so you can bring it to your customers for value. You can have every information, what we call a 360-degree view, but you can have information around your customer's entire profile sitting in the technology system.
Great. Okay, so good. I just want to make sure everybody understands that because I feel like everybody has a different answer to that question. So let's get to the questions. So my first question is, you're dealing with and talking to small businesses all the time. What are their biggest challenges in terms of customer relationship management strategy?
Yeah, I mean, look, like SMBs care about growth, they care about customer retention, and they care about employee retention. And all three of those things map very well to making sure you have the right technology systems. I think, as we think about the pandemic and how that has impacted some of those challenges or general priorities, there's certain things starting to pop up a little bit more. 50% of SMBs are concerned about customer demand. And I'm sure there's a lot of folks on the line thinking about, how do I make sure customers are still aware of what we do or wanting to use our services? The other thing that's sort of popped up that I've noticed over the past 8 months or so since we've all been working through this crisis is about 45% of SMBs have had to find more channels to communicate with their customers. that can be complicated, especially depending on the resourcing you have, how you manage all those channels and how you make sure you're providing a great customer experience at any given moment. The world's so flat now that customers want to talk to you whenever they want, wherever they want, however they want. And you have to be prepared to be ready to help them. And that's just a major challenge for small businesses who may not have, the resourcing or the savvy to have everything set up properly. What has been really cool, though, about the pandemic that I think has, like any crisis, created somewhat of an opportunity is, one stat that we've seen through our surveys is that SMBs, about 77% of them have viewed this crisis as a catalyst for change. And so there's a lot of companies right now, whether you're that one person shop figuring out how to stay afloat, or whether you're kind of that 30, 40 person shop that, you're stabilizing and getting ready to sort of disrupt or innovate in this new world. It's a chance to really revisit your strategy as a company and really think about the systems you have and how you can really turn those into driving growth, customer retention, and employee retention.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting that the pandemic didn't necessarily create these problems, but it brought them to light very quickly, and in a way that businesses, maybe they knew the problems existed or the challenges existed, but they were able to kind of ignore them because they could do business as usual. And so this has forced them to deal with that, which, for a lot of companies has really been enlightening. So I want to talk about your company, and all companies that sell CRM is a technology, but customer relationships are personal. So how do you marry those two things? The need to have personalized customer relationships, but use technology to do it. And how do they think about that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think at the end of the day, technology can either be a differentiator or can be a barrier.
Right.
And I think, the ways that we think about it at Salesforce and the ways that we work with our customers is sort of in categories. Any small business, or generally any company for that matter, has some categories where they really want to work with their customers. Of course, there's the concept of finding customers and how you really communicate with them when maybe either they don't know about you or you don't know about them. And then there's actually winning or selling to these customers once they're ready to have expressed interest in your services or whatever else. And that needs to be a really quality experience. The first impression goes a long way in any relationship, especially when it comes to business relationships. And then once you have them, there's a really important category where you need to keep them. And by keeping them, it's not just about saying hello and being there for them. It's providing them value. And so there's really ways that you can have systems deliver on that. And then once you've been able to prove the value and the expertise in whatever your field is, then you can really take your customer relationship to the next level and grow. And the way we use technology to do that is, for each specific category, find, win, keep, and grow, there's ways that you can leverage technology to improve that relationship. Things like having data speak to you the moment you should be calling a customer, or having data notify you when maybe a customer is having an issue. There's something to be said about the ability to respond to a customer, and generally the ability to be there for a customer when they're going through something with your services. And one of the ways that technology has really empowered Salesforce to try to just be there for our customers, and the way our secret sauce is via technology, is at any given moment, we should be notified if something is going wrong, and we should be able to directly communicate with that customer, whether it be through whichever channel they would like, and or simply picking up the phone and making a phone call.
Yeah. I wonder if, as a person who thinks about this all the time, I imagine sometimes you sort of probably get philosophical about it. I wonder if a measure of success in how well technology is working and helping you build and maintain these customer relationships is how invisible the technology becomes. So almost like from the customer's perspective, I imagine that if it's really working, the customer isn't thinking about technology at all, right? The customer's thinking about the relationship. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, like uh, if you rely on technology to do the work for you, the experience will never be what your customer is asking for. But if you rely on the technology to make you aware so that you can bring value to your customer, then you can really use it as a differentiator. And so the invisibility of technology is key in terms of efficiency, in terms of automation, in terms of making sure your customers know exactly where they can get connected with you for whichever category that it sort of matters most at that point in time. But the responsibility as a customer, or sorry, as a company, is to focus every single interaction on the customer. And so if that's a phone call and that's how your customer wants to communicate, that's the responsibility. If the customer wants to communicate via social media or a text message, that's the responsibility. But as long as you have the systems in place to be able to focus every interaction on the customer, then you can really get places. And so to the point of like invisibility, absolutely a metric. I think the key is like, are you responding to it and taking or owning your responsibility?
Yeah. So speaking of metrics, I think
Yeah.
everybody's company is different, obviously. So the kinds of information and data that you would want to collect on your customers depends on your business. But just generally, are there like some key data points or metrics businesses want to keep tabs on with their customers that will help them serve them better?
Yeah. I mean, I think especially for SMBs, small businesses right there are every single dollar matters more than any other person could possibly imagine, right? Every single small and medium business owner is looking at their finances and thinking, okay, am I getting the most for my dollars? And so, simple metrics like your marketing ROI, whatever you're spending money on, what's your return on that? That should be a metric that you should know at any given point, and ideally creates a life cycle of that dollar turning into X amount of dollars for the future. I think the next metric that's super important is just your customer life cycle. Right? How long does it take a customer to come on board with you? What is their retention rate or renewal rate? How much does it cost to acquire that customer? How much does it cost to keep that customer? Um, New business acquisition is key, especially for small businesses potentially doing an industry, maybe not as established of a small business per se. Though the new business acquisition is probably your primary. That speaks directly to the concept of growth. So those would be a few that I would think about. I think the only other ones I might add is like secondary, which are important, but like if you get to the next layer would be when a customer reaches out to you, what's your response time? Whether that be interest in your product or whether that be an issue with your product. What's the response time? You can certainly win or lose business within the first couple hours of a response.
Yeah.
But those would be a couple that I would start the conversation with any SMB.
Great. Thank you. If you're a business right now, whether you have a CRM system or you don't, but you are just starting to think about modernizing your CRM, your approach to CRM, just what are like the first things a company should be thinking about?
Yeah, look, I'll provide maybe 4 key takeaways for folks, and I don't know, maybe we can share it with them after. But the first is you have to create a values and a prioritization of your business. Oh, great, they're right here. This is perfect, and that's really important because it's perfect. Look at that. And like any decision you make as a small business has to be aligned with what your company's mission is, and how you're going to achieve that mission. So any decision, technology aside, it has to be aligned with your values and your prioritization. Once you have that, then you can really start looking at your business process and figure out where you need to improve efficiency or really automate things to try to drive value to your dollar, value to your priorities, et cetera. Once you've had a chance to really kind of dig into the inefficiencies in the business and how it relates, every interaction has to be focused on the customer. Even if you're thinking, yeah, but like a lot of our stuff happens internally, no doubt it does, but it has to have the customer at the center of it, or else it may not make sense. It may not be relatable. It may not be used in the proper ways. And so when you're thinking about a technology, it has to be focused fully on the customer experience. And then lastly, especially when it comes to employee retention, but also for value to your customers, empowering them with data is optimal. When I think about our sales teams or our support teams or our renewals teams, or go down the list of any customer-facing team and or internal team that doesn't necessarily face customers, giving them access to data about your customer will help bring the value from your company to that experience of your customer relationship beyond any level. One small example of how I might like think about putting these all in action is like, once you've had your priorities as a company, which by the way, you might think is simple, is not all that simple. Really think about like, have you whiteboarded this out? Have you communicated it to your employees, et cetera? But the moment that you have all that set up, go be a customer of your own product and walk through the different ways that you want to reach out. Walk through the different ways that you would expect to have that conversation with your own company and see if the technology is there. And it's a great way to really validate, are you efficient? Do you have the customer first? And of course, are your employees ready to handle whatever may come at them from your customer?
Yeah. We just have another minute before I switch over and introduce our small business panel, but I want to ask you, for businesses, small businesses, as you said, every dollar matters. And especially right now, things are tight for small businesses. So if you're a small business with not a big budget and you need to improve and invest in this technology, just what is the first thing you should be thinking about? Like, what's your entry level approach to CRM? What should you be using it for? And how should you be thinking about it?
Yeah. Look, most every technology company out there now, technology provider, has some form of an entry-level package. Salesforce has a starter package. And what I would say is, within the find, win, keep, grow categories, just whichever one is most important to you right now, whether it's finding customers, actually earning those customers' business, keeping those customers, or figuring out how to grow, whichever one, invest in that. So for example, if it's finding customers, invest in a marketing tool that can help you speak to your customers in the channels that they want to communicate with you. Super simple. If that's email, get an email system. If that's social media, make sure you have a technology that can translate any sort of interactions on a social media platform. If it's winning customers, basic opportunity management. How many customers are willing to spend money with you right now? What stage in the sales cycle are they? And are we on pace to winning that business and earning them as a customer? If it's keeping customers, basic case management, give them a channel to speak to you if they have an issue, and make sure that you live up to your standard as a company, and technology can help with that. So you kind of get the hint. I think it's somewhat dependent on what each company wants, but there's a basic entry-level way to do it based on which category you just need to invest in most right now. And my best advice for small businesses that are optimizing their finances right now, don't overcomplicate it. You don't need to buy the biggest, sexiest, shiniest new technology. Buy the most basic that works and make sure you set it up properly. And from that point on, then you can expand from there.
That's really good advice. Thank you. So I'm going to introduce our panel of small business owners, but we will come back to you and we will have plenty of questions from the audience later on. So thank you, Tony. So I'd like to introduce our small business owners. First, we have Elizabeth Loge, who is CEO of CBS Rentals, which is a construction equipment rental company based in Houston, Texas. We have Zahir Palanpur, who is CEO of Azul, which is a digital product development and design company based in Atlanta. And we have Renaldo Webb, who is the founder of PetPlate, which is a pet food company, and he will explain more about that. So welcome to all based in New York. Renaldo's based in New York. So welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm going to come to each of you and ask you to tell us a little bit about your company. So I'll start with you, Renaldo. Tell us about PetPlate. It's more than just a pet food company. So tell us more specifically what you do, and then tell us about how you serve your customer base and why that requires good CRM.
Of course. So at PetPlate, we're a digitally native brand, and what that means is customers are able to order their pet food directly online via subscription. We do a lot of awesome personalization for our customers. So when you go to our website, you just fill out a very simple quiz about your dog, and then we are able to personalize the meal plans and ship them directly to your door. All of PetPlate's meals are 100% human grade, which means they're made at USDA facilities alongside human food. So really no different than the food that you would be feeding to any of your other family members. We take a lot of great pride in the quality of food that we make, and we work very closely with veterinary nutritionists to design all of our meals. We're also launching lines of treats and supplements, and hopefully should have some food for cats soon as well. We're a small startup in New York. We have about 15 to 20 people on staff. And we've been growing very, very rapidly.
So tell us about your customers. Why is CRM particularly important to you as you serve your customers?
Yeah, I really resonated a lot with what Tony said, because particularly at PetPlate, with us being a digitally native brand, how we were able to relate to our customers, it's all taking place online. And customers are talking to us via a variety of different platforms, whether it's Instagram, sending us a DM on Twitter, or emailing us, or trying to use chat functions online. And we need ways of consolidating all of these information, all of these questions, and making sure that we're helping them find the right products for their pets, or we're solving, any of their issues. Maybe a box showed up late, or their dog doesn't like the beef dish and would prefer eating the chicken dish, right? So there are a variety of different things that we have to, kind of combat on a daily basis. And we have a remote CX team, so we have policies and procedures in place that help support them. But all of that would be so much harder without one central repository for basically the team to rely on as a single source of truth, to know what the customer's questions are, for us to be able to consolidate data and to be able to use that to then update product roadmaps, et cetera. So CRM has been very important for us, and it's been kind of a little bit of our DNA at PetPlate. So we've had a CRM software that we've used from the very beginning, and that's been able to grow and scale with the business, which has been truly helpful.
Great, thank you. I'll come back and ask for some more details about that in a little bit. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So your business completely different. You rent heavy equipment and supplies essentially to construction businesses. So completely different business, but same situation. You have customers who rely on you, and they need they need for you to know what their needs are. So tell us about your business and why CRM is so important to you, being able to manage those relationships.
Sure, yeah. Well, like you said, I mean, we are a construction equipment rental company. We rent to contractors and sell a little bit of supplies, but our business really isn't that unique or complicated. At the end of the day, our customers need a trusted and reliable partner to provide them, a solution to whatever their issues are or whatever their needs are. So we strive to differentiate ourselves from other suppliers by being first, fast, and flexible. And this technology fits right into that mission. So,
can you give an example of what being flexible would mean at a company like yours?
Flexible in terms of, what their current needs are. I mean, it really just depends. It's a case-by-case basis, for those particular customers. But I mean, it could be anything from equipment needs, or flexibility to billing issues or terms and conditions. I mean, there's a variety of different things that could go into being flexible for them.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Zahir, welcome.
Thank you.
So tell us about your company. You create websites and digital products for companies. So tell us, again, totally different kind of business. So tell us what you do, and then tell us why managing customer relationships is important specifically for your business.
Certainly. Azul is a digital product development and design company. So we specialize in building applications, mobile platforms, websites for our clients. So it's all around the software world and the online presence that our customers would like to have for their businesses. most of what we do is specialized and focused around the front line of the organization. So it's on the front end, which really means their sales, marketing, and customer engagement functions. So we really specialize in building applications that touch your customers or touch your marketing, sales, and customer-related functions. So we have about 60 people right now, based in 2 offices, headquartered here in Atlanta. We've been doing this for over a decade now, so we've seen a lot happen and a lot of transition over time. Interestingly, we found in the last couple of years that there's been a lot of kind of entrepreneurial activity, and we find ourselves working a lot with entrepreneurs who want to build a business around a particular technology. So they come to us, and we actually help create the technology for them and then launch it and continue to support them through that life cycle. So it's really important for us, to be able to effectively work with our clients. We sell a solution where we essentially become an extended part of their team, and in some instances, their primary team for that initial period. So we have to be very connected, very engaged with them. And certainly technology plays a very critical part from that standpoint. So while we certainly provide solutions to them, we're also using technology ourselves to engage, whether that's creating a digital workspace where they can come in and look at how the project is progressing, looking at their product backlog, to all the different communication mediums that we use, as well as the tools that we use to manage the relationship and to share information with them. So I think one of the biggest things that has changed over time is everything's moved from your desktop to kind of an online environment. So, we, for example, love using Google Docs. We have almost everything out there, and that just gives access. And, access is key when you're working very closely with your clients.
Right. Great. Thank you. Renaldo, let's talk more specifics about your CRM and how it connects to your processes and, your back-end operations. So just, can you give us some specifics, like what kind of information do you have in your CRM and how does it connect to other systems that you have, whether it's inventory management or your shipping or whatever it is?
Yeah, of course. So, we have basically 2 systems that we use at PetPlate. We have our own internal backend system that by customer will pull in information such as how many shipments they've gotten, what information about their dogs or breed, activity level, body condition, weight, what plans they're on, and also has all, a suite of their full transactional history. Tony brought up a good point about making sure you're measuring the right metrics. So for us, we're making sure we're looking at customer lifetime value, right? How many refunds this customer has gotten, what discount codes they have and they've received in the past. So that allows you to have like a profile of is this a gold customer, is this a silver customer, bronze customer, et cetera. You can use your own ways of classifying customers in that sense. But I think that's very important when you kind of link that to customer loyalty programs or other things you may have. But that's kind of our own internal systems. Most, if you're a digitally native brand as well, or using a web platform like Shopify, they should have systems like that. We then are working to integrate that in our CRM software, and we use Zendesk. There are a variety of different softwares you can use. We've used Zendesk and been very happy with it. Intercom's another one, I believe. AirCall is one if you just want to use the phone. But there are a variety of different B2B softwares that I think do a lot of amazing things for small businesses. One, for example, with Zendesk, with a couple clicks of a button, we can integrate our Facebook channel, our Instagram account. We can tie it into text messaging as well. So now all of these different forms of communication just come to one central location, and that allows us to then put in policies and procedures for how we answer questions, how we automate answering questions, and then how we collect data on what questions are being asked. So that's kind of the 2-pronged system there. And I think another thing that's been brought up a couple times on the call is start to walk before you run or crawl before you walk. And I think that even at PetPlate, we still have a ton of opportunities in terms of linking those 2 systems together. Right now, we're kind of toggling between 2 different tabs. We hope one day to have that all in like one centralized view. just to increase efficiency. But right now, that's not necessarily the priority. The priority is figuring out what policies and procedures work best, collecting data to inform business decisions. So that's kind of where we focus at right now in PetPlate. And it's worked really well. And it's been, I think, like a simple way of setting up, but, don't overcomplicate it. I think now in the, this new realm of, this new digital realm with, entrepreneurs, looking for a variety of different services, there are a ton of companies out there that can help, but those have been a few that have been very helpful for us.
Thank you. Elizabeth, a little bit more. So I think you use Salesforce, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So just tell us a little bit more about, you really need to provide high-end customer service, and often in very time crunched, situations where it's high pressure. Somebody needs a piece of equipment now, they're standing there on the job waiting for it. So tell us a little bit more about how you're using your CRM and the data in it to be able to offer that to your customers.
Absolutely. So we do absolutely put a lot of emphasis on delivering legendary customer service. So we do this by providing our team with all the information they need at their fingertips. We have a general sales process workflow and customer data, which is all built into Salesforce. But we also have dashboards to help us monitor the business at a high level. Accounts receivable is in there, tracking and metrics, service calls, equipment health data, construction project stages, as well as general operational performance dashboards. This year was a little bit different, and it was an adjustment for us, but with the technology that we have, we were able to shift and pivot our focus for the business with all the data that we needed in a matter of days, because we had all the information streamlined into one platform, and it's totally customizable. So it was, or is, more of, for us, about communication and the ease of that communication and just being able to get it at our fingertips. It's just a huge improvement for us. I mean, we've been in business since 1965. And so you can imagine, I like what Renaldo said, it's keeping it simple. And so, just putting the information that we need, the basic information, into one platform has been a game changer for us.
Right. Thank you. Zahir, you are working with customers, but you have your conversations and your touch points, and then you go work on the project. So tell me a little bit about where those moments are in your relationships with your customers, where are the most important times that you need to be touching base with them, and how this technology is helping you do that at the appropriate time.
I think it's hard to sort of pinpoint just that one place that is most important. I think for us, it's sort of managing through the entire life cycle. So I think it's right from the get-go when they first reach out and engage with us. So when you're in the selling process, you want to be responsive, because part of the sale is not just what you're presenting to them, but how you're presenting it to them. They're already evaluating you on how responsive you are when you engage with them. So, having the right systems that allow you to have access to all the information about the client and the solution that you're providing them is, I think, critical in those sort of initial sales cycle. And then when we get into the actual development, we typically go through something called a discovery phase. And that's a much more hands-on engagement with the client. I think that's something that we have personally struggled with, because it is much more well-suited for in-person sort of workshop-like interactions. But what we've been able to do is use visual technologies like Zoom, along with kind of online whiteboarding and a digital workspace to do the best to supplement that. And I think that's worked with us. So our clients can go at any time and see kind of where we are in building that product backlog for them. They can see where we are in terms of timelines and what the next steps are as far as it relates to their project. And I think that sort of level of communication and collaboration makes the process a lot easier, for them when we're interacting with them.
Great, great. Thank you. So it is time now for us to go to the audience Q&A. But before we do that, we are going to look at our poll results. So the first poll we asked was more of a word cloud and less of a poll, I think. We asked people to tell us the most important aspects of good customer relationship management. So I am looking for the results to that. Oh, okay. Communication, trust, listening. I'm a big fan of consistency. I see that over there. And transparency. I think transparency has been particularly important during the pandemic, with customers just wanting to be clear on what the new rules of engagement are with businesses. Yeah, so these are interesting, though. I think trust, communication, and listening are clearly the big winners here. I'm going to go to the next poll. And you guys can answer this, the audience can answer this right now, and we will look at the results in real time. So the question is, how would you characterize your use of technology in your company right now? This is good, panelists, for the audience Q&A, because it will help you see where the audience is in terms of its journey of using technology. So we have a big group who are really just starting to think about this, so that's good to know. And really, the vast majority of people here would not characterize themselves as at all fully integrated. So just right now, 7%. So I think that's important for us to keep in mind as we answer the audience questions, is that the vast majority of people here are really looking to you for your expertise, because they are either at the beginning of their journey, or they are just looking to expand. So, okay, I am ready to go to the audience Q&A. Hang on one second, because my notes slipped off my screen. So I am going to go look at our first question. Okay, so this is an interesting question, and I guess it's our most popular, I think. I'm going to start with you, Tony, and then I'm going to let other people weigh in. This is an unexpected question for me. How important is grammar, syntax, punctuation, etc., when conversing with customers via chat versus email? Chat seems informal, like text, allowing more room for error. Oh, I'm sorry, this was not our most popular question, but I'm asking it anyway.
Yeah, look, I think whenever you respond to a customer in any way, shape, or form, the first thing you should think about is you are a representation of your brand. And so whatever that response looks like, especially when it's a documented response, a text, you certainly want to come across as what your brand represents. So always fall back on that. I think in general, technology has made business more casual in general. So it's okay to potentially use text talk or shorten words or things like that, but it has to be within your brand, and it has to fit within the culture that you're trying to display publicly.
Yeah, that's interesting. Did anybody else want to just weigh in? I think that's just such an interesting question. Did any of the three of you have any thoughts on that? Like, are you sticklers for that at your company?
Yeah. One thing we do at PetPlate is we have macros that we use, which is just kind of like automated responses for the most commonly asked questions. I think that's a good way of like making sure that you're giving examples for kind of, your team to follow, and for how to answer questions in general, but also the most common ones you might get. Are you open during these time periods? Or what about XYZ in terms of like what for PetPlate, like what meal would you recommend for small dogs? It gives a nice way of just making sure that that stays consistent. And I also think this speaks to making sure you get everything into one platform in terms of your customer questions and how you're responding to them. Because if it's not, it's hard for you to be able to go through and audit on the back end to make sure that kind of your sales team or your CX team is actually following the rules and procedures that you've put in place. And some of these platforms actually allow customers to rate the responses that they've gotten. And that's a good way to know if you're like really hitting the mark in terms of some of the slang or your unique language that you're trying to communicate with your brand.
Right. Got it. Thank you. Elizabeth, sorry, who was about to wait?
No,
Here? Go ahead.
yeah, I was going to add a couple of comments here, really, because at the end of the day, this question is about, how do you deliver your communications out to your customers? What is that tone? And I think there were some great points on addressing the kind of how formal or informal you are with chat and some of these sort of text-based mediums. But today we're finding ourselves using video and communication, Zoom being a major player in this area. And I think we kind of went through the same evolution of having a more casual approach to using Zoom, to now really having a much more thoughtful way in which we communicate using these visual communication methods. So for example, in my company, we mandate that every conversation that we have, either internally or with customers, is done with Zoom with video turned on, because when you're doing that, you're forced to pay attention, but you also demonstrate that you're paying attention. And then the second is, of course, that your visual communication and the cues around that are much more powerful than just using another format or medium. And it's kind of also been interesting to see that when we first did this, you'd sometimes see somebody's ear against the camera. It wasn't as kind of well thought out. And now we've really helped our team to become much more effective in looking at the camera, in speaking clearly, making sure that your background is not distracting. So these are all little tactical details that allow you to communicate much more effectively with your customers and with the teams that you work with.
Great, thank you. Elizabeth, I'm going to come to you with what is actually our most popular question, which is, what is your most important piece of advice for companies looking to adopt more technologically advanced solutions like these? Like, how do companies know when it's time to make that decision?
So this is kind of funny. For us, it was kind of like, playing a basketball game without a scoreboard. You don't really know how well you're doing. Your team doesn't know how well they're doing. They're just in the daily grind. And when we realized that, we started, it really started with centralizing and consistent reporting, which is blah, 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 right? But when you want to, give that transparency to your team, to encourage them to, go back on the court and play every day and to the fullest of their abilities, but also to have fun. That's when we decided that we needed, something to kind of differentiate and give us that information. So again, we were getting away from the daily grind of the business and moving to a more fun and competitive, goal-oriented culture with our team. So the team was able, as a whole, to work towards a common goal. We were able to drive and adopt adoption of the product very quickly, and to double the performance of our business just by having them, having the information at their fingertips.
Got it. Thank you. Another very popular question. So I'm going to ask a couple of you to answer this. I'll start with you, Tony. This person says, I understand how CRM can help me stay organized, but how can it help me grow sales specifically?
I love that question. The first thing I would say is ask yourself the question, what don't you know about your customer or prospective customer? And that's likely where you can turn to technology to help you improve the experience you're providing for your customer, improve the way you position your company or your product to that customer. And ultimately the definition, right, of people will work with people that not only they like, who are accessible, but also that are providing them value, a services of value. And so technology, if you don't know something about your customer, you probably aren't being able to provide them with the most value possible. And so, look, a way that we do that I think is super relevant and super basic is we have 8 stages in a sales cycle. Stage 1 is like discovery. What are we learning about the customer? What can we potentially solve? What are the problems that we can help with, et cetera? All the way through to like providing them return on investment metrics, to helping them figure out how they're going to adopt and roll this out from a technology perspective, to helping them create a long-term vision that's not just the first purchase, right? Those are all stages in a sales cycle. And each one, we do two things. We empower our internal employees to make sure that they're bringing the resources available to provide value to their customers. And then we provide external resources specific to the clients to make sure that they know transparently where they're at in the cycle, access to what resources they can have so that they can really learn about our services and make the most educated decision. And then ultimately mutually agree on providing value mutually as a partnership to go forward. And that's all done through just basic sales cycle stages that you can monitor and help your customers see throughout.
Thank you. I'm going to give everyone else a chance too, if you want, to give a specific example of how you have used CRM to drive sales. So I'll start with you, Renaldo.
Yeah, I mean, a specific example for us is retention. We spend a lot at PetPlate to acquire a customer. So understanding if the customer has an issue with their delivery and with their dog's enjoying the meal, or a question about how the process works, wants to move an order, right? CRM allows us to answer those questions very, very quickly, and lower response times we've been able to see improve out, actually leads to more sales in general, but then higher retention. And then the final, I guess, example is we're able to also see what questions customers are asking over a certain period of time, and that just allows us to then tweak and modify the business to make sure we're not having those problems in the future. So those are, I think, kind of two important things that help drive our company retention, which then just leads to more sales.
Yeah. Zahir, did you want to answer the same question? Any specific examples of how it's helping you drive sales?
Sure. I mean, one example would be that we periodically will analyze the data that we gather through our CRM systems, and it really helped us understand the types of customers that we're most successful with, and both from a kind of a psychographic as well as from a size perspective. So we were able to then be much more targeted in terms of how we were going out and seeking new clients based on these profiles that we had. We also saw that 20% of our clients made up 80% of our sales. So that really helped us structure our business to really focus on retaining and growing and building relationships with those key customers. And we also got to a point where we started raising the minimum level of business that we were doing, so that instead of having this long tail of very small clients, as we grew as an organization, that we could be much more focused on the clients that that we have the most significant relationships with. So that certainly had a big impact.
Yeah, that's a thing that we haven't said so far, is that it gives you insights into where you should be spending your time and energy. If 80% of your sales are coming from 20% of your customers, or 10%, it helps where to focus those resources. Elizabeth, same question for you. Any examples of how it's specifically helping you grow sales?
Exactly the same answer. I mean, targeted, focused attention specifically on certain types of customers is very important. Another one for us is proactive, knowing what the customer needs before they even call us. So we know we just have information fed into the system, into the platform, to give us some insight into what the project is, what stage the project is, who's on the job, so that when the customer calls us, we already have all that information. We already know what they need. They're just calling to give us the order, basically.
Right. Thank you. Tony, coming back to you on this question. There's been a couple of people today have said, keep it simple, don't overcomplicate it. So this person says, if you're starting out small, how do you determine how much CRM information is too much or too little? How do you find that sweet spot of using it to its best advantage, but not overcomplicating it? Yeah.
Before I answer that, I want to add one more to the last question, because I think it's super relevant and it wasn't mentioned. Every single person on this call, every single small business has competition. And a CRM is a great way to leverage competitive intelligence to make sure your company's message is coming across properly to your prospective customers. And so, for example, in a CRM system, call it Salesforce, you could put in, we're competing with X company. to win the business of this customer. And you can automatically have information sent to you that says, here's what that competitor's top differentiator is. Here's that competitor's value prop. Here's how we differentiate against that competitor, things like that, so that you can really be armed and ready to go and caught in terms of bringing value and not caught off guard. So anyway, that's from the last question. In terms of the basics, look, I think I'll bring you back to the same question because I think it's important to repeat. What don't you know about your customer? And you may be the one person shop saying, you know what, I don't even know the names of my customers. So I should just get a Rolodex going of what's the person's name, what's their email, what's their phone number, what's their company name, etc. If you're slightly beyond that, then it's about, potentially tracking and understanding what that customer has purchased or what they could potentially purchase from you. Or understanding, important key dates to reach out to that customer, whether it's renewal dates, or maybe you're, Renaldo and you want to provide a discount to that customer when it's the dog's birthday, things like that. So basic stuff that really is important to your customers that you want to reach out and be there for them when it matters most.
Great. This person says, is it important to provide mobile access to data? And Elizabeth, I feel like you would be great to answer this because I think the answer is it depends on your business, but I know that for your business, having your employees have mobile access to this data is important. So can you tell us a little bit about why?
Yes, absolutely. It goes back to, having the information at your fingertips, whether it's a driver delivering equipment or a service tech, going out to service equipment, or a sales rep. Just needing to know, they're walking onto a job site and they see this particular customer or a prospect customer, and knowing the information that is, in a centralized, location. It has everything from, if they've ever been billed anything, if there's ever been any communication with them, what equipment they have, and so on. So having that information on a handheld device or tablet or whatever is vital for our business.
Great, thank you. Zahir, I'm coming to you. This question is, what are the most important touch points with your customers, and how have you changed your operation? How have your operations around those moments changed as you've grown?
Sure, and we have the advantage being a small business that this applies to us, but we also do some of this work for our clients. So we see sort of the whole spectrum from smaller to more developed, larger organizations. And I'd say there's kind of two key things that one wants to look at when addressing this question. One is just a really simple exercise to just plot out the entire customer buying experience. And again, this can be a very simple exercise on a piece of paper where you just look at the entire buying experience from how do they hear of you? Then what are they doing to select, to search and select products from your business or services if you're a service business, and then through the interactions that happen that lead to the proposal process, and then on to actually engaging with your organization, and then very much sort of after the fact in terms of invoicing, maintenance, support. So if you just plot those main actions or activities that make up that entire customer experience, you're then able to look back and say, what do I do in terms of providing support or innovating for them so that we're able to do something a little bit more or a little better. Elizabeth mentioned about how in a fairly standard industry, they're using technology to really differentiate themselves. So you want to kind of look at and how you can do that most effectively. And then apply that to yourself in terms of where you are in terms of size and your evolution as an organization. So when we started out, for example, it was really important for us to be able to properly manage and track the sales pipeline for the prospective customer. I just used an Excel sheet. It was really easy for me. It was just me doing it, and I just had this Excel sheet that I diligently tracked and looked every week in terms of where we are. I had columns that allowed me to see where I was going. And I use that now as we've grown, we began to use more effective customer management CRM systems that allow us as an organization to share information, allows our sales team to access things, as well as our product teams to work collaboratively to present that solution to our clients. And then, of course, once we engage with the client, we have, as I mentioned earlier, a digital workspace that allows them to see how their project is progressing. For some of our clients, we've built some more advanced solutions in terms of how they're searching for our products and looking at what our products bring to them, and what the value is to them. So we you can get fairly complex out here, but I think as a building block, having your basic website, today you can create a very compelling web presence that allows your customers as well as your prospects to look at what you have to offer in a very, very professional manner. And then, of course, as you go along, you can build on that and customize that further.
Great, thank you. We have time only for a couple more questions. Renaldo, I'm going to come to you because I think that this is probably something that you do more than anyone, and it's about what advice do you have regarding using technology, so not specifically CRM software, but using technology to share your company's values with your customer? I just feel like your company specifically is built sort of around these specific core values around the food that you create for dogs. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think, this all starts, almost like outside of technology, and making sure that, yourself and everyone on your team is just aligned on what those values are, and it's kind of a part of the culture. So, at PetPlate, we have, brand values and an employee handbook that, everyone, regardless of, whether you're a CX agent or you're a new distribution partner we're bringing on, you get the email about that, or you get the pamphlet about that to kind of walk you through what that is. And I think once you've installed that across the organization, now it's about how do you put in those processes and procedures to ensure that people are following that, right? And again, that doesn't have to be, very much focused around technology. It can just be, typed up and emailed, or it can just be like an employee handbook that you're, delivering. But, when you start thinking about how is that built in the CRM, I think depending on the services you're using, there are opportunities for you to build that into automatic greetings. So, someone sends your company an email, and the automatic message that's kind of sent back to them while your team's getting ready to answer, can kind of communicate certain things to them. Or if you understand your customers' touch points, for PetPlate, for example, there's a delivery. We make sure we send an email out before their first delivery, explaining the benefits of human grade pet food, what they can expect to see in terms of a difference in their pet's health, and kind of common questions that they might have about, feeding, refrigerated human grade pet food. So those are, I think, ways that you can, really accomplish that. It's making sure you and everyone in your organization is aligned on that, and then going through that customer journey. And, regardless of if it's, CRM or emails, figuring out what those touch points are and who's involved, and making sure that they are doing things that support that is where I would start.
Great. Thank you so much. That was actually a really good example. So Tony, we are right at time. So you have about, 30 seconds or so to touch on values and tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I'll do quickly. I think it's a fantastic question. I think every company should promote their values with their customer base. It goes a long way. 3 of our core values: trust, innovation, and equality. We leverage technology in many different ways to share those values. From a trust perspective, at any given point how our systems are performing, if they're up and running or if they were ever down, nothing to hide. Innovation, we have really leveraged our technology to try to create a platform for change. And it's all through making sure, contact tracing is a chance where you can leverage technology to make sure you're safe. We've felt the responsibility to step up there. And when it comes to equality, we've actually shifted our entire marketing approach this year to webinars focused on equality, focusing on diverse business owners who can share their stories and who can present their companies in ways that will help them not only be more marketable, but change the world. So anyway, I encourage everyone to do it. And I would say, don't be shy about talking about your values with your customers. It opens up a place that'll help you have a stronger relationship.
Great. That's a great place to end it. So I want to say thank you so much to all of you. Thank you, Tony, Elizabeth, Zahir, and Renaldo for joining us today. And as always, it's thank you to our audience as well. If you guys want to learn more, Salesforce is hosting a bonus session Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, where Salesforce experts will answer all of your questions specifically. So you can check the post and our event announcements now, and you also will get an email later to register for that. In the meantime, don't forget to check out the links at the bottom of this page. I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, Chase for Business, as well as our supporting sponsors, AppGuard, FedEx, MetLife, Salesforce, and Square. And most of all, to our audience, thank you so much. Thank you to our panelists. Everyone have happy holidays. And we will see you probably next year. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye. Thanks.